You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Shawn Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-hosts, we interview the innovators in this space every week. Ivan, please go ahead and get us started.
Hey, I'm Ivan Zach, and I'm excited to introduce a colleague of mine, Dr. Jason Balara. Dr. Jason brings over a decade of experience as a veterinary surgeon since 2008, and he is the owner of JMB Mobile Veterinary Surgeon, providing expert and compassionate care. Additionally, he serves as the co-founder of Lark Capital Group, a real estate syndication company specializing in large-scale multifamily assets. Dr. Balara's current focus is on Lark Capital Veterinary Impact Fund, reflecting his commitment to make positive impact in both veterinary medicine and real estate. Jason, welcome to the show. Thank you for finding the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk.
For those that don't know, well, most of you wouldn't know, is that this is a second take to record this episode because we screwed up and didn't record it. So, Jason, I really appreciate that. I wanted to make it public that I appreciate you coming back. This is the third time in the history of the podcast. So we only had it 3 times. So you're special to us. From surgeon to real estate ownership and creating the syndicate. How does that journey happen? Because, you've gone through a lot of training to be a surgeon and all of a sudden pivoting. And are you still practicing, or your most focus is on real estate?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely still practicing. And I would say, this question has come up a lot lately as to how this happened. But essentially, I've been in real estate and construction since before I was a veterinarian. So, I mean, that started for me as a teenager working in construction, and I always saw real estate ownership as kind of a way out of what was a bit of a challenging childhood situation with my mom was a single mom. We just didn't have a lot of money. We moved a lot. So I just always saw real estate as the way out. So I definitely was the kid that wanted to be a vet. I loved animals. I thought being a vet was the way to go. I honestly didn't know I could even be specifically a surgeon until I was probably midway through vet school, and I found out there were people that do only that. I went to them and asked a mentor, okay, this is what I want to do. How do I do exactly what you're doing? But it always ran in tandem. I was always working on either my own house, friend's house. It was very much a part of my life and a way to essentially create funds, create wealth. I didn't really think I don't know that I would call it wealth at that point, but a way to create money just through hard work. And so that was what I did for kind of all the years. And then in 2020, effectively what happened is we finished our own house. The renovation was done there. And I wanted to get more serious about real estate investing. And so that's when Lark Capital was formed. But they always ran in tandem.
That's awesome. So a strange question for you. What are the parallels between being a veterinary surgeon and a real estate investor? Or is there any?
There were quite a few for a long time because I was very DIY and hands-on. And so being a surgeon I often equate it to being just a highly educated carpenter. I fix bones a lot. And I didn't realize how much those two things worked together until I was training residents, and I was like, why do you not know how to use a drill? It was one of those things that, like, how do you not know how a drill works? Because that was just such a part of me that it always, so a drill, they're different drills, but they're not that different. And it's like a drill when I'm working on the house, or a drill or a saw when I'm working on, fixing a fracture or something like that, or doing a TPLO. Like, it's really not that different. And so a lot of it when I was doing the, kind of a lot of DIY, they really were very similar. And now as a syndicator and fund manager, that's a lot less DIY and more CEO and educator. And so what's interesting there, the correlation is one of the things we have to do as veterinarians is take a complex medical concept, and that we have to understand, the anatomy and physiology and all of this, and explain it to an owner of a pet that knows nothing about that, right? They're just worried that their pet's sick. And so we have to take that complex concept and bring it to their level. And I have to do the same thing when I'm talking to investors. Like, here's what a syndication is. This, there's a lot of terms and techniques that go into it. And then I have to explain to them what's important to them. And that's is how it helps them. So actually, I feel like, there have been times where like these are so different, but in reality, you can take pieces of your past and morph them into something that, sort of impacts your present situation in a positive way.
So we've got to reskill a bunch of carpenters to fill the veterinary void, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, yes, except for the carpentry world needs a bunch of. They're also short-staffed, so
There's
it's a
enough veterinarians
trade.
burning out, so they would join the carpenter force.
Yeah, I
So
mean, you could realistically go in either direction, but it's an interesting parallel because both the trades, like the trades in general, carpentry, plumbing, electrical, they are very short-staffed, as are we in veterinary medicine. I think it's a not a really a lot more similar than you might think on surface.
yeah, my wife compared me to a plumber before because I'm a veterinarian. So she was always involved in the science and true. Actually, she was in cancer research. She was doing experiments. So there was a true science. And she always told me that you're a plumber because you're fixing three things the same way you learn, and you're applying four medications, antibiotics, steroids. So it's yeah, she humbles
That's
me
why I
a
like
lot.
her. That's why I like her so much. Yeah.
So another weird another maybe weird question. Um, we see here the entrepreneurial veterinarians that creating innovative things are usually people that were not, some were frustrated, some got burned out, some got just to the end of excitement with being a veterinarian, and they either advanced to a specialty like you did, and then we're like, oh, there's an end to this excitement, or right out of vet school they tried and they're like, this is not as exciting as I was thinking about it for 20 years. So we're lucky here in this podcast to be exposed to people that did find the way
Yeah.
to find new excitement in their career and life, because we talk to all the innovators and founders. Do you find that that's what happened to you? Did you kind of reach the excitement? Because I know you did it in parallel, but was there like an influx where you're like, you know what, this vet thing is cool. I'll keep it in the back pocket and cut here and there, but I'm going to focus on this, and this is more exciting for me. Did you reach that point as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's true, and I'm not even sure that I realized it. It was, I think, as humans, people like we thrive with growth, right? And so, and I'm not saying that I know every possible thing there is to know about surgery, but I do feel like I had gotten to a point where there weren't a lot of advancements there for me. And what I got the most joy out of when I still worked in a W-2 scenario was training residents, seeing their growth, right? Seeing what, they come in year one and again, don't know how to hold a drill, and go out, at the end of year three, and someone I can say I'm proud to have trained and seen their progress. So it reached a point where that was the only place that I was finding a lot of joy in what I was doing. And I think back to, in a residency, you're working all the time, you're on call, all of this. And I loved it. Like, I loved my residency, and I still love surgery, but I had gotten in this place where it was more of a job. And so, pivoting into real estate, I didn't do it because I was burnt out with surgery. But what I realized was, hey, this is something exciting. I feel like the last 3-4 years has been a second residency for me. And I've, now grown my knowledge and experience in a different pathway that's exciting to continue that growth. So my goal now is, as I look at being a surgeon is, I want to be the best surgeon. I want that. I want to be known that, hey, this is a hard case, we send it to this guy. I want that in real estate as well. I want ultimately for people to say, I want to invest with him because he's good at this and he cares very, very much about the outcomes. And so that's, and again, talking about sort of those parallels, it's not that different. It's not that different from what I look at from a surgery standpoint. It's a different vehicle, but it's not that different in what I'm trying to get out of it.
Well, what this reminded me, what you said, and as I think about the happiness of the intellectual employees, the Daniel Pink book, The Drive, and he talks about how intellectual employees are motivated and excited, and it's not monetary. It's really having the combination of three things. It's autonomy at what you do, being able to reach mastery continuously, and having the purpose behind it. And it's feels like a lot of veterinarians like yourself, when you get to that level of mastery where there's not more different surgeries to learn. You've done them all. I felt like that in emergency. I've removed enough spleens. I've seen enough dying things in front of me that could be saved and were saved. Like, it's just, you've seen it all kind of thing. And then you're reaching that ceiling in this sort of mastery thing. And then you're looking for other outlets. And it's interesting that you found it also in teaching others. So that's excitement of helping others to reach that mastery. But I think once you reach that limit, then you're looking for something else. And it seems like a really nice purpose added to what you're doing right now through Lark Capital Fund and the nonprofit. Can you explain us how that works? What is the purpose of it? Because there's one sort of for-profit company that's building something, but there's a parallel non-for-profit that has a relation to our industry. So can you dive into that?
Yeah. So, high level, what we do, what Lark Capital does is we're a syndication company and fund manager. Those two things are very, very similar. What you're trying to do is bring investors in to partner with our operating team in purchasing assets. A syndication typically refers to a single asset deal. So you have one apartment building. We're going to close it in 45, 60 days. That's sort of one opportunity. Within a fund, when you invest, you're investing and getting diversification, because you invest in the fund, we buy multiple assets within the fund. Where that ties in with the sort of charitable impact component is, we decided, this goes back to the question you asked before, is about having two separate careers, what the meaning of all of that is. And I realized I had been keeping real estate and veterinary medicine very separated. That it was like, oh, here's what I do over here, here's what I do over there. And I was struggling with that from an identity standpoint. I just didn't like the way that felt. And so the fund really came out of a pursuit of combining the two. And I've always wanted to have a charitable component to what I do. I have my own podcast. It's called Know Your Why. I fully intend to someday have a Know Your Why Foundation, which will be, sort of a charitable thing on a larger scale. But what we decided to do with the fund is we are donating 25% of the profits to Not One More Vet, which probably most people in the veterinary community are familiar with. But Not One More Vet is an organization that was formed basically to help veterinarians with their mental health and financial struggles, because the rate of suicide in the veterinary industry is so high. And so we wanted to do something to give back to the veterinary community, and thought that was really a good way to do it with this first fund. And at the end of the day, additional future funds, however this all goes in the future, we may or may not always donate only to Not One More Vet, but we will always have a charitable component of what we're doing. I think this is very important, and it helps me stay motivated and driven.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Jason. So, Jason, the other interesting thing is that real estate, for people like yourself and myself, it's something I've always been interested in and kind of done since my early 20s. Is something that everybody has thought to get into. I remember the conversations you and me had, Ivan, and all kinds of other friends. It seems like the investment opportunity that a lot of people are interested in, but nobody knows where to start. So this syndicated fund that you're starting seems like a great way to dip your toe in the water. Can you talk more about, what that structure looks like and why it might be interesting to people that are listening to the podcast as a way into real estate without having to know how to use a drill?
Yeah, and that is something that, and frankly, 5 years ago, I didn't know what a syndication was either. So it's not like something that gets taught to us. But basically, most people know people grow their wealth through real estate, right? Like there's always this quote that gets put out there that I think it was from Rockefeller or Vanderbilt or whatever, but like 90% of all millionaires got that way through real estate. That's like a thing that gets floated around all the time. Whether or not that's still true doesn't even necessarily matter. The point is, a lot of people have grown their wealth and preserved their wealth through real estate, through generations. But what most people, I think is, if I'm going to get into real estate, what I have to do is go find a house that's run down around the corner and go fix it up and do all of this stuff myself, and they see it as this sort of daunting prospect. But the reality is you can invest passively in real estate, and that's what we do through syndication and our fund. You can invest passively, you get to share in all of the real estate benefits without having any of the risk or the or doing any of the work, essentially. I guess I shouldn't say without any risk. There's always risk in any investment, but the only thing that you can lose if you invest passively, and this is whether it's in real estate or the stock market or crypto, whatever it is, the only thing you can lose is money. If you're the active investor, you can lose time, high stress levels. You can lose, if you have debt that is what's considered recourse, you can lose your other assets if something goes wrong. So there's a lot more on the line to being an active investor. And so starting at least as a passive investor and seeing how that all works is a really good place for people to be and get exposure to real estate and the benefits.
This is so that was just like an eye opener what you just said to me, because I, recently and before, I was all invested into things I do, and I just realized what you said, that you lose only money, which is not, at the end of the day, not a scary thing. You could be doing something, and I had good success, but I also didn't have a good success with a couple of things, and the only thing you lose is money if you're not doing it. But I did lose the time, and like, it's so interesting. It's such true. When someone is thinking, okay, well, that's cool, I would like to become a passive investor, and this guy sounds like he can do this. How would people connect with you? Are our listeners that target audience that can co-invest into your fund and be with you, veterinarians that sold the practice and have free capital sitting around, or just those that working but have something set aside and don't know how properly to deploy it? Is that the audience you're looking for? And if yes, what's this starting process? How would they find you? How would they talk to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking to help people, and obviously specifically in the veterinary community is important to me. I think we, as veterinarians, we go through, sometimes a decade plus of schooling and training to learn our craft. And nowhere in that decade plus did I ever have a business or finance class. And so that stuff is often just ignored. I didn't even get to talk to clients about money until after my residency, and then I had to. Like, it was always just kind of a separate thing. And I think that's actually a big problem in our industry. And you have people opening practices because they don't like the way that the practice they work at is run, but yet they don't know anything about running a business themselves, and they end up in exactly the same position. And it's not, I understand that. I understand why they want to, but if you keep just doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to end up in the same spot. And so there's a lot of financial and business literacy missing in our industry. So what I want to do is help, and we put out a lot of content educationally. We have a Facebook group, all this stuff. To reach me directly, email's probably the easiest thing. Jason@larkcapital.com. Like, you can set up a call with me. You can go to our website. It's larkcapital.com. There's all kinds of ways there. There's all free educational resources. You can set up a call with me. You can, if you're interested in just learning about real estate investment in many different avenues, I have a podcast, the link's there, like all of that stuff. The education is there for you. And you need to take some time to figure out how to better your own financial situation. I think I know what it is to be a veterinarian. I know what struggles veterinarians are facing and things like that. So I would like to think I'm a good vehicle for people to reach out to if they want to discuss these things. I understand the importance of our investors are everything. But at the same time, if my investment vehicle doesn't fit with your goals, guess what? There's about 1 million different ways you can invest in real estate. And I can point you in the direction, at least, to help you find what's going to fit for you. If someone wants to be active, I've done that. I can tell, I'm still doing that. But like, if someone's like, I want to flip houses, I've done that. I can tell you some things to get started. I also have now 300 episodes of a podcast with real estate investors, and I can probably connect you with 5 or 10 that have flipped houses. Like, there's something to be said for that, network that's built. And it's the same thing, when we're in veterinary medicine, right? You're like, I have a question about, my dog has a heart murmur. I have 3 friends that are veterinary cardiologists, 3 very good friends. I just call them and ask them. I don't try to do that myself. And so what I want to be, what I want our company to be is a resource. I would love it if every investor in our fund comes from the veterinary community. That would be amazing to me, because that would mean we would maximize that impact for the veterinary community. Don't have to be a veterinarian to invest in it, but that's, our impact piece, our charitable piece is not one more vet. So I think I would just like to be a resource for people and help. And if they're not interested in what I'm specifically doing, I can help you find someone who's doing what you want to do.
That's awesome, Jason. Well, like every other week, we ran out of time super quickly. Got a couple of questions for you before we wrap up. First is a YouTube, TED Talk, a book, something that you found inspiring that led you down the path that you've been on for your career so far.
Yeah, the book I like to point out it's called Who Not How. And like I said, I was a DIY guy for sure. I still like want to do things. I still like to use my hands, but sometimes sometimes you're holding yourself back by that. And I certainly did. I worked in, on these single family houses, did all the work myself for decades, probably 20 years I've been doing that. And in reality, had I used my time more wisely and been more of the CEO like I am now, I probably could have done even better. And so I think it's something that as veterinarians, for whatever reason, we are expected to know everything about everything. And it's within veterinary medicine, but I think then that kind of trickles down into other areas of our life. And the fact is, you don't know everything about everything, and you shouldn't have to. Like, that's not so. Finding people to complement your skill set, I think, is really important.
That's really cool. Just bought it on Audible to read it. The second question that we usually ask: is there another innovator in this industry that you think would be good for this podcast?
Yeah, I've talked to a few. We've had a few vets on my podcast recently. I think that it's always very interesting to me to talk to people that are entrepreneurial, because there's quite a big divide. The people that are, I guess I would say, Dr. Kristen Welch. She's a criticalist. I've known her. We did our residencies together. She has started a company called DVM Insights, essentially for telemedicine consults, that sort of thing. Just the other day, well, I met her probably about a month ago. A veterinary technician and certified practice manager, Grace Urseri. She is like a huge money nerd and understands the finances behind practices, and has helped a bunch of clinics kind of dig their way out of challenges and make their hospitals much more profitable. So, I mean, there's a couple of names for you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.